Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to a HeflaTV broadcast with myself, Mr. Blackadder, and we bring you today Insidious Idol versus MiTH in the jDL Season 3 Asian Division. Now, this is a best of 2 series, as always, tournament rules, and, well, I'm wondering what these teams can show us today. We have had an interesting few days. In MiTH we saw yesterday play up against Team Mushi for the Team Mushi Challenge. Unfortunately, they couldn't walk away with the prize money, but we did see some spectacular play from both teams here, and I'm honestly looking forward to what MiTH can show us in this game. On the flip side of the coin, however, we do have the Insidious Idols. They are battling for their jDL pride, and, well, I've not had a chance to cast Insidious Idol before, so this should be an interesting one. We do see the immediate bans on the Lycan, the Faceless Void, the Razor, but now the last ban to MiTH will be the Doom. This does, of course, leave the Brewmaster and the Shadow Shaman in, Skywrath Mage, and a few other heroes of note, but I would not be surprised here to see either the Tinker or potentially the Brewmaster. They both offer a good amount of control. But from where we stand, ladies and gentlemen, it will be that Viper. So, looking for early threat on the mid lane. Viper is a very good mech carrier, as we all know, and potentially hate, but nonetheless, there's the Brewmaster and the Shadow Shaman for MiTH. They'll help themselves to both when given the opportunity, and do you really blame them? The pushing power of a Shadow Shaman, the control of a Brewmaster, and the burst damage of both. And we are already looking for Blink Dagger aggressive play coming out of MiTH, and honestly that would not surprise me at this point. They like their Blink Daggers. Every team likes their Blink Daggers, and it makes sense in this meta. It honestly just makes sense. However, now Insidious Idols, they have their choice of hero here. What do they pick to go up against this Brewmaster? They've already got their Viper, but now do they go Skywrath Mage or Witch Doctor? We saw great use of Witch Doctor yesterday by Team Mushi. Dazzle is another option. Do they pick up a support here or do they pick up another core? We could, of course, see the combination of Skywrath Mage, and I might be expecting an Earthshaker should it not get banned out here, since Skywrath Mage and Earthshaker is one of the most common support combos we've seen in the recent months at least. Was picked up to great popularity at the Assembly, as well as in the jDL so far. I've seen that combination more times than I can count right now, and it's honestly surprising to see how the meta has shifted, because we had previously the whole, let's just go for the split push. Skywrath Mage and Earthshaker give you teamfight, control, and burst. Completely different style. MiTH seem to be favouring that push kind of strategy right now, but of course we have 3 picks left to team, and from where we stand, well, they can still pick up the likes of, say, a Dragon Knight to push towers. They could go for an Enigma, use the Eidolons to push the towers, and still have that teamfight threat with the Black Hole. There are many options here that both of these teams can favour, but there will be no Death Prophet, there will be no Ancient Apparition, there will be no Centaur, and we've got one more ban coming out of MiTH. And what do they ban out here? Do they ban out the Earthshaker? Do they ban out the Tide? Both of these heroes would be a very wise ban here from MiTH, and we did see them ban out Tidehunter twice yesterday against Team Mushi. And you've got to consider, what does the Tide bring to the table? More control, good amount of burst damage, and Anchor Smash. Anchor Smash pretty much shuts down the majority of melee carries on the lane. And not only does it give that 60% magical, 60% physical damage reduction, you then have to consider the threat of the Ravage as well. But equally, if they do decide to ban out the Tide, or, well, not ban out the Tide, there is the pickup of the Rubik still available for either of these teams. And they will take the Sand King out, which is another one of the big teamfight heroes that could very well synergize with that Skywrath Mage. However, the next pick for MiTH will be that Morphling, and, well, this is a hero that we've been seeing again rise in terms of popularity, and he does have that potential to burst. He can go for that shotgun, but is this going to be the right choice here? You consider the general build would be a Lincoln Sphere into the, of course, Ethereal Blade, but Lincoln Sphere doesn't really block anything at this point. It can take away the Ancient Seal. I suppose that's the most major thing in the draft so far, but this is still early goings. For the third pick for Insidious Idol, do they go for the Earthshaker here or the Tide? Both of these seem to be at the forefront of my mind, and generally for good reason. Just the sheer threat of that big teamfight initiator. Hell, a less common one that also does come to mind is the Elder Titan. He's a situational pick. He's sometimes picked up by teams, but he does bring that same kind of team fight setup and burst damage. And then you not only get that, you get on top, you get the natural order aura, which is a very big threat nonetheless. But it'll seem we'll be going for more damage-oriented lineup from Insidious Idol so far, and they pick up the Weaver. Now he's going to be looking to try to get in and get out as much as possible with the Saguchi, do what damage he can, pass through and farm up. The problem here is a Weaver has, I believe, 451 HP at level 1 with no items purchased. He's a very squishy hero. And you've already got a Brewmaster plus a Shadow Shaman on the field, and then you've got a Morphling who will become a high burst damage nuker. It's going to be a very rough time here for Insidious Idol if they keep with a squishy lineup in my mind. But then again, this will depend entirely on the timings of the mechanism on the Viper and potentially the build of the Skywrath Mage here, because Skywrath Mage could certainly go for an Atos, try to tank up a bit, and I feel like he's going to need to. If he goes for, say, a Ghost Scepter in this game, he's just going to get blown up even more quickly. But it will be the Rubik here for MiTH Thrust, and Rubik's a good pick, I think. It's got a good roaming combo. We've got the Rubik, Shadow Shaman. Equally, Spell Steal. What can you get this game? Viper Strike, pretty damn good spell. Skywrath Mage, you can steal the Ancient Seal, probably the best thing, or the Mystic Flare, if the Rubik, of course, has the mana to support it. And, of course, one that always needs mention when a Rubik is there, it is Saguchi. Now, stealing Saguchi on the Rubik, he can try to harass through and irritate the Viper and the Skywrath Mage. But, nonetheless, Insidious Idols have their 4th pick. So, where do they go from here? Do they now tank up and indicate this is a safe lane Weaver and a mid lane Viper? Or do we see the, what I would call, unlikely off lane Weaver and mid lane Viper? We'll get the Wraith King, and that's most likely going to be a support Wraith King to combo with the Skywrath Mage. So you've got the Ancient Seal into Wraith Fire Blast and Mystic Flare to completely obliterate a hero into the early to mid game. Around the 10-minute mark, you'd hope their ultimates would both be online, so they can start going around and just isolating and blasting down a target in a second or two flat. But for the final ban, MiTH Thrust will take out the Nature's Rat. There will be no threat of the Profit Split push in this game. And both of these lineups from these teams, they're not what I would call very intensive in terms of push. What do we have that can push towers here? The Weaver, he can push towers at least fairly quickly with his Gemini attack and keep the creep wave back with the Swarm. The flip side of the coin, however, the MiTH Thrust have themselves the Shadow Shaman. The Serpent Wards, he can run up, deploy him at a tower, back off if he needs to, and just try to bring down a tower that way. But we're not seeing the Death Ball kind of style that I've been expecting of late. We don't see the Death Prophet, we don't see the Nature's Prophet. It's a refreshing turn of events in my mind, and with one final ban coming out of Insidious Idol, they will choose to ban out the Tide very late in the draft, and that's going to at least attempt to give them some form of control on this game. But for Insidious Idols, we are looking for either a mid lane or an off lane, depending on how they choose to lane this one. And for MiTH Thrust, what could they go for? What off lane or mid lane could they go that would devastate the lineup of Insidious Idol? To an extent, Puck comes to mind. Silence can lock out that Skywrath Mage, deal with the Weaver, and then burst it down with a quick flurry of damage. We could also see, in some respects, the Clockwork, because that comes to mind here. He can get on top of the Skywrath and bring him down quickly, cause some problems, try to get in the back of a team fight. We already see the Tide and the Centaur banned out, so the big off-lane teamfight initiators are isolated here. But again, Elder Titan does come to mind. It would be a unlikely pick, but it is a fringe pick. It could be a good idea here. Either way, though, MiTH Thrust know better than I do. I am just but a lowly caster, and as we all know, the caster is always wrong. So let's see what MiTH Thrust can offer us here in terms of something to round out this team, something that can make this team work, something that will add cohesion to it. And from where I stand, sure, you've got a lot of control from the Brewmaster, as well as the Shadow Shaman, telekinesis from the Rubik. They have technical supports with hexes and control effects, but something else to bring some damage to this draft feels necessary. That or something with a big team fight initiator. And assuming you have, okay, this is a lineup that could work. I called it right. Yes, fringe pick is correct. I was going to say we could also see the Enigma, but the Titan does seem more likely. And well, Back to Insidious Idols. How do they answer this Elder Titan? They'll go for the Ember Spirit. That gives them some more control and potential damage if he can stay out of these fights and just hop in and hop out, get some damage on the board. But now, let's load into the game, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? What are we hoping for this game? Are we hoping for that big teamfight carnage? I think we are. We all like a good fight, don't we? But based on the drafts, ladies and gentlemen, I do like to turn to you guys in chat whenever I'm casting. Put a vote in chat. Who do you think will win? Do you think Insidious Idol will win? Or do you think that MiTH will win? Place your votes in chat. It's curious. I'd like to see what you guys think. We do have a slight pause here while we've got some players sorting out some issues. But let's introduce the players while this is going on. We've got... I'm probably going to butcher a few of these names, I warn you guys now. Ysera on the Ember Spirit, and I can't pronounce that name. Too many vowels. Just too many vowels. I'm British. Give me a break. We've got Shagasaurus on the Viper. We've got Bethel on the Weaver. Insidious C on the Wraith King, and I believe he is standing in from Orange. I could be wrong on that one. And we've got Z-Red on the Skywrath Mage. On the flip side of this coin, as they smoke up, and they could look for a fight in the jungle here. Flip side of this coin, for MiTH, we have Noki on that Rubik. We have KYT on the Elder Titan. We have SD on the Shadow Shaman. We have MyPro on the Brewmaster. I believe this is the third time in a row I've seen him playing the Brew. And finally, we have Lakels on the Morphling. So both of these teams have some decent level 1 fight, but we could be looking for that train wreck of a level 1 brawl right now. You've got Insidious C rotating in. He's going to be the one to lead the charge. He's going to potentially get a Wraithfire on SD. Will go straight into the Shadow Shaman, and they're going to commit immediately, but in comes the Spirit. That's going to see a lot of damage, but they're going to burst down Insidious C. He comes in first and pays for it with his life. Lakels picks up first blood, and now Bethel will go down to the right click. Shagasaurus taking a good amount of damage and being the focus of MiTH now. And one more right click. That's a double kill for Noki. Double kill Rubik to start the ball off. And he's most likely going to get his boots off the back of that, and now the rest of Insidious Idols will fall back. They can't risk losing anyone else. They were looking for a kill in the jungle. They didn't expect the entire team, and now they're 3-0 down. And this is it all even before the 0-second mark. So, let's officially get this game on the road, will we? Let's see here. We're going to have the Elder Titan most likely rotating up to the top lane. He's going to be going 1v1 up against the Weaver of Bethel. Now, in this matchup, I would generally tend to favour the Weaver, but this is an Elder Titan that has a good chunk of gold extra to himself. He's got himself his early boots. He's going to be able to move in and out, and he's going to be able to harass with that all-important Astral Spirit. Now, over in the mid lane, the matchup is slightly different. It's MyPro on the Brewmaster up against Ysera on the Ember Spirit. Now, again, this is going to be a good matchup, and I expect this one to be fairly even, at least up until maybe the level 4, level 5 mark, when we've got that level 2, level 3 in Thunderclap and the extra points up into Drunken Brawler. Again, it'll depend how much these players harass each other, but I think it's going to be fairly even. And finally, that does leave the tri-lanes. Now, this is a try-v-try situation. We've got a Rubik, Shadow Shaman, and Morphling up against a Viper, Wraith King, and Skywrath Mage. And honestly, this is going to be a hard one to call, but my gut instinct says that MiTH have slightly more in terms of CC, and that MiTH should have a slight edge in this lane, because if, let's say, the Viper commits onto the Shadow Shaman, Noki will telekinesis and throw it back. Speaking of telekinesis, going to look for Shagasaurus, and he's going to be shackled, brought down potentially by the Morphling. The waveform's there, but it's not enough damage right now. They need 2 more right clicks, one from the Rubik, not going to be enough. Now the salve's ticking, and he's just going to be forced off the lane for now. But still, it keeps the Viper back for a bit, and it gives Morphling time to safely farm. Now, I was saying, if they try to initiate on the Rubik or the Shadow Shaman, the reverse hero will cover the support. So telekinesis on from the Rubik will cover the Shadow Shaman, and Hex from the Shadow Shaman will cover the Rubik. It's a very defensive tri-lane here for MiTH, and they should have the edge based on that alone. But equally, if Ysera goes looking for a rune, doesn't find it, it will instead be taken up by Z-Red, and he's got Invis. He might come in, look for a potential kill. Pings do go out on that mid lane from the Ember Spirit, and if they come in here with the Concussive Blast, this could be enough to bring down MyPro. But of course, MyPro is level 4 now. He's starting to do scary amounts of damage. Sure, he doesn't have anything in terms of regen right now, but he'll be getting a bottle very soon. And again, Z-Red, he's coming in looking for the courier, I believe. He's going to hang around maybe a minute and just wait and see if the courier comes past, because that could be a very easy courier kill at this point in the game, specifically when this courier is not upgraded yet. But it's still going to be, as I say, a curious game. I feel like it's going to be fairly even, at least in the early game, even with that 3-kill advantage. But my gut says MiTH should have this towards the mid to late game based on the draft, if they can keep the Weaver down. And in this top lane, it is a bit of a trade here in favour of the Elder Titan. And now we've got another brawl going down in the bot lane. Shackles onto Insidious. He's going to be the target here for Lakel's, Noki and SD, but can they bring him down in time? One more right-click, Waveform will clean it up. Yes, they will. Now Z-Red rotates in now, but trading blows with Lakel's. This could be fairly hazardous for Lakel's, but he's going to be forced to fall back, and now Noki is chasing the Viper. This could be a little overzealous on Noki's part, but seems Shackles doesn't want to mess with Noki on the Rubik, and rightfully so. Noki is one hell of a Rubik. I've seen him play a few games as the Rubik, and his positioning is nigh flawless a lot of the time. But back in this mid lane, it seems the Skywrath Mage rotated away from the mid lane before he could get that all-important courier, and that's given MiPro time to start bottle crowing. He's going to have a fairly good amount of control on this lane now, and Ysera is equally going to need to bottle crow to maintain the same level of pace that MiPro can now start to put out. Speaking of pace, we almost have that level 6 now on MiPro, and that's going to be potentially the go word for the next few big team fights. We could be looking for an early set of primal splits into control and killing off maybe Shagosaurus, or rotating top and killing off Bethel on that Weaver. And honestly, killing Bethel is going to be a very good thing at this point, and you can see he's opting for early Ring of Health to try to sustain the damage taken from the Astral Spirit. But still, the stolen damage from the Astral Spirit will mean the Elder Titan can just walk up and punch down the Weaver, should he decide to. But nonetheless, across the map, it's a bit of a step down in terms of the aggression we saw in the earlier opening few seconds of this game. But nonetheless, we can look for some action. I should think, if anywhere, it's going to be on this bottom lane. There's just too much threat of a kill, and the D ward is dropped the same time as the dire side ward, and that'll be cleaned up immediately. The supports want no extra vision granted to Insidious Idol, and it'll help shut them down and control them on this lane. Equally though, the Viper, he is going for the 1-1-1 build. I'm expecting high points and corrosive skin early. He's at a disadvantage. He can't press the advantage with Nethertoxin at this point. He needs to be tanky. He needs to build for corrosive skin. But again, that's no surprises in the current day and age. Unless you're a Viper with a good kill advantage, you'll generally prioritize that prioritize that corrosive skin anyway, just for safety. The extra magic resistance, the extra damage from the dot. It punishes you whenever you hit the Viper. That's brilliant. I mean, there's a reason Viper is so strong in the mid lane, and B, as a safe lane farmer. If you harass the Viper, you will potentially take more damage than what you harass him with. And a brilliant example of that, and this is just mechanically, if a Queen of Pain throws a dagger at a Viper, the Queen of Pain takes more damage than the Viper over the duration of the dagger. It's the Shadow Strike. It's a interesting mechanic, and it's always one that so many players underestimate. And just the effectiveness of corrosive skin. You cannot underestimate the ability to just be tanky. Specifically on a Viper who does more damage to lower health targets. Basically, the longer the Viper is in the fight, the more chance you have of losing the fight if you're against that Viper. And MiTH Trust will have that in mind this entire time. But from where we stand, at least in terms of CS, the Morphling and the Weaver are fairly even, 30 CS apiece, but we do have a couple of kills in the Morphling's belt, 2 kills and 2 assists, whereas the Weaver is literally on straight CS farm at this point. Equally though, he does now have some supports rotating in, and Weaver does have his level 6, so he has the ability to try to survive with the time lapse, and it's going to be up to this Weaver to A, maintain that level of advantage, and B, maintain this level of farm. He's going to need to. He flat out needs his treads, and he's opting for that, and I'm wondering if we aren't going to see a Medallion BKB build just for the threat of the magical damage and control coming out of MiTH Trust. Can you really safely go for that Lincolns and be safe and survive in these fights? I'm unsure. I mean, Lincolns, sure, you get the indicator that there'll be a Lincolns off the back of a Ring of Health, but is that going to be an immediate Lincolns? I would think a BKB at this point might be more safe. Sure, it will cause problems in terms of your early game damage potential since you don't have the extra stats from the Ultimate Orb, but it's going to give him the safety to farm. even if there's the initiation from Noki or from KYT. And what do Insidious idols have to fear when they've got their BKBs up? What goes through BKBs from MiTH Trust? Effectively, nothing. The only thing they could risk happening is getting caught out in a ward trap, but the Weaver can just Saguchi through that, and he'll be safe. And he has opted for the power treads, so it just seems that Insidious idols want to get as much time to get some farm on their heroes as possible, and I don't blame them. They're playing from a 4-kill deficit, 3 from before the Horn. So the more they farm up, the better it will be for them. But they are playing from that disadvantage, as we mentioned, and it is a disadvantage we can actually show in terms of the gold graph. They're already at near a 2k disadvantage. And it's going to be something to keep in mind throughout this game as we lose Noki for a few seconds. Hopefully he'll get back in with no problems at all, but more importantly here is this experience graph. This is a 1,500 experience lead 8 minutes into the game. That is something that is quite scary, and we can actually see the effect of this on the levels of these heroes. I mean, you've got the Brewmaster, the Ember Spirit, who are level 8, but you've got a Skywrath Mage who's level 2 on the flip side of that coin. The supports are 2 and 4 respectively for Insidious Idol, whereas they're 4 and 3 on MiTH Trust. And the level 4 Shadow Shaman is a big problem. The sooner he gets his level 6, that means there's going to be a bigger threat on your towers, and you lose them just to the Mass Serpent wards. The pressure those wards can provide, be it in a team fight or be it in just taking towers and buildings, again, is not to be underestimated. I will use those words a lot. You cannot underestimate things like that. That when you underestimate something, that is your biggest weakness, your biggest vulnerability, and it rapidly increases your chance of losing the game. But both of these teams are wiser than that, but they both realize the potential threat each other's drafts and teams pose. And equally, the other thing I'll mention is the Rubik. He's almost got his level 4, so he's doing leaps and bounds better than the Skywrath Mage, who is still, of course, level 2. But more importantly, the sooner Noki gets that spell steal, that's the sooner he gets either A, the Viper Strike to steal, or B, the Saguchi. Those are the two big ones we're looking for. The other spell that Noki could steal that would have massive effect in this game is, of course, Wraith Fire Blast. But now we get the jump in from Ysera. Telekinesis immediately from Noki, and he's going to try to deter this push for the kill on the Rubik, and will successfully manage to do so. Doesn't want to commit to it. In the meantime, though, MiPro will clean up the Wraith King in that mid lane while we're paying attention to the Rubik. So, a 5-0 lead here in favour of MiTH Trust, only in terms of the kills, though. No tier 1 towers have yet to fall, but Lekels, he's fine with this. He's just going to continue farming as close to his tower as possible just to be safe, and Bethel is going to do the exact same thing. Towers starting to take a little bit of chip damage, sure, but at this point it's no big threat, at least until the Shadow Shaman's wards come online. But the one hero we haven't really talked about much yet in this game, and I mentioned this one in the draft, the Elder Titan. He can come into fights, use his spirit to steal away damage, and then right-click himself with a staggering degree of effect, and it does look like we're going to see Tranquil Boots come online for him. That, or we could potentially see a Vladimir's, but him and the Brewmaster would be the only ones benefiting from it, so Tranquil Boots would make more sense to me, at least in this game. Now, not only that, he brings Natural Order. Natural Order is what makes Elder Titan the Titan that he can snowball into being. Negative, potentially 100% base armor. Negative 33 magic resistance. Then MiTH Trust can just turn around and burst that. They can burst any target down that's really affected by Natural Order. And we already have heroes like Ysera on this Ember Spirit who are fairly vulnerable to physical damage. And before we even consider anything else about the Elder Titan, we have to keep also in mind Earth Splitter. Earth Splitter is percentage-based damage. No matter how tanky you are, you will take the same amount of damage. 35% total. The only thing that increases as you level up is the slow. I believe the cooldown changes slightly. Actually, no, it does not. So he can actually leave that at level 1 and be safe if he just wants the 2-second slow, and then he can invest points into the Stomp, more points into the Natural Order. No surprises here with the build. But now you've got MiPro lurking around again. He still doesn't have his dagger. He's off by 400 gold. And they could potentially look for Ysera off the back of this. They drop the Thunderclap. Do they have enough to bring him down? The physical damage is staggeringly high, but now we get the turnaround. The Wraithfire Blast onto MiPro. But is this a bait? Yes, it damn well is. In comes SD. Hex goes onto Insidious immediately, and Primal Split to chase. The Wraith King will be the focus here, and he's going to take a large amount of damage. Telekinesis into the air as well, but some harassment being thrown with a Searing Chain from Ysera. It does not matter, though. Surely Insidious will go down. But no, he's still standing strong. Got a bit more HP. One more stun to go across from the Earth Panda, but Now the Promise Split wears off, and now can be the potential turnaround, and it will be. Finally on the board, Insidious bring down the Brewmaster. Equally, top lane, we've got a bit of poking and prodding from both of these heroes here. KYT taking some harassment from Bethel, and being forced off the lane, I'll point out. But the Spirit will be the response. He'll just drop that, and equal amounts of HP traded across both of these heroes. Still, though, we have to keep in mind the advantage that MiTH Trust have. They are in key position to take this game early to mid-game if they can keep up the level of pressure and not lose the Brewmaster, not lose the big core Morphling. And speaking of the Morphling, he is farming away quite nicely. He's 72 for 36 in terms of CS, dominating the board. And now with the Mass Serpent Wards, this will be a push on the tier 1 tower, but where will the defense come from? They're going to pop the fortification. That's going to be down till 1645. And now we get the TPs in. Waveform spent by Lakel's already, so that could be his potential escape gone already. But Replica straight onto that Viper, and that's a perfect target to Replica. It gains the effects of Corrosive Skin, among other things. And, well, Morphling Replicas, as we all know, are fairly tanky.
Bottom tower denied. Nicely done, dire side.
But Insidious will at least manage to hold and deny the tower, and they're trying to farm up as best they can on these Mass Serpent Wards, but still, Ysera takes a staggeringly large amount of physical damage, and if there's one thing an Ember Spirit is susceptible to, it's physical. But in the meantime, while they're defending bot lane, mid lane is being pushed. The enemy put their focus somewhere, you look somewhere else, and now they're going to go telekinesis onto Z-Red. Can they bring down the Skywrath Mage? Yes, they damn well can. Earth Splitter drop as well, not even necessary. It's just to zone out the rest of the team, and that's a kill and many TPs across the board in favour of MiTH Trust at this point in time. Quite the strong showing here, at least in the early game for MiTH, and it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. It is just the only way. But SD will now be the target and getting cleaned up by a poor rotation looking for the rune. But Insidious and Ysera saw that immediately, and they'll clean that one up. But now, where do we stand from this one? MiTH, they need time to farm, and it seems like Insidious want to fight. They're coming in the back lines. Insidious leading the charge. Going to go straight into Noki. Telekinesis up in the air to buy him a little bit of time. The Ancient Seal is there, though, and that's going to be enough to clean up the Rubik. Now we've got the chase going. They look for KYT, and they do catch him. He drops the stomp. That's only a level 1 stomp, though. That'll only last 2 seconds, and now comes the turnaround. The Wraithfire Blast. In comes MyPro, though, on the back lines. Drops the Thunderclap. He doesn't have enough to Promise Split. Now he does after using the wand, and can he fight this one? He's got his Blink Dagger now. But everyone's just going to fall back. They're going to disengage. They don't want to continue this pressure, or do they? Insidious certainly lurking nearby, and we catch another pause, unfortunately. Hopefully we've not got any disconnect problems. With any luck, everything is fine, and these players can keep this going, keep the momentum. We love to see the fights. We love the momentum. The more momentum we get, the better the game is. Who doesn't love a game where you've got 60 kills in 30 minutes? The best kind of game. But as we take a quick look around the map, let's see what's going on. We've got Lakel's. He's going for the Lincoln Sphere on the Morphling, and that's going to help him out dodging the Viper Strike, dodging the Ancient Seal, dodging the Wraithfire Blast. It's going to be necessary for Lakel's in my mind, and MiTH Trust certainly going with the right item choice here. But they're now keeping pressure onto this top tier 1. Can Insidious defend this one? Insidious will go straight onto MyPro, and now we get the potential disengage, and that will be the order of business here. Z-Red doesn't want to mess around and has just dropped the concussive blow. They're going to sacrifice their tier 1, but they can't honestly defend it at this point. They don't have enough yet. And we can see that. The Weaver doesn't even have his ultimate orb. He's behind the Lincoln Sphere of the Morphling by a good 2,000 gold, if not more. Hell, the Morphling could near enough finish his sphere at this point. He's sure he doesn't have the Void Stone, but he's that close. I think he has enough to buy it all right now. And Ysera will, as I quickly switch to mid lane, bring down the Rubik. And once again, Noki getting caught out of position, but still, a pick off on the supports every now and then are helping Insidious get back in this game. They were at a 4-0 disadvantage. It's now 6-4. But now we get the potential jump in. We find it from MyPro. They'll bring down the Skywrath Mage. So it's a support for a support in this mid lane. And it's exactly what we need to see out of MiTH. They need to take favourable trades, and killing these supports for a support is decent for them, because then they can use it to push the tower in, especially when Mass Serpent Wards is ready on SD. Now, he wants to come and deploy the wards here, and it would be a very easy tower. But equally, Ysera is here, and forcing back MyPro, but now comes the Wraithfire Blast, the Thunderclap to respond, though. Mass Serpent Wards deployed, and now this is the fight we're looking for. In comes the Earth Splitter, cleans up the Ember Spirit. Now they're going to look for the Wraith King, and that's going to easily be a pick-off. But of course, reincarnation to come. Back in the fight. They're going to have to turn around and bring him down again. Immediately stunned out, though, by the Earth Panda. Do they have enough to finish this? You get the Ancient Seal from Z-Red, but in comes the Viper Strike. That'll be enough to clean up the Shadow Shaman. And Shagasaurus is just chipping apart these heroes. The strength of the Viper. If you don't bring down the Viper soon, he will just kill you with his Orb Walk. And Noki comes in again. He's unfortunately going to die, and he revives just to die again. It's the sad story of the Rubik at this point, and that's a 3-for-1 trade. But it's a 3 for 1 and a tower trade, and that does put it slightly in favor of MiTH Trust based on the tower gold alone. It's an odd one, though. I thought they would get the deny there. They didn't manage to bring down the Mass 7 rewards in time, and now the game's starting to transition into the mid-game. I think net worth is much more viable to keep an eye on, and you can see just how poor the Skywrath Mage is. He's only got 800 gold, not even that. He's barely got more than Brown Boots, and that's going to be very rough considering the enemy Morphling now has his Lincoln Sphere. You can't really Ancient Seal the Kells anymore. On top of that, we're going to have the potential for Blade to come up at some point. And if we see the Blade, who's going to be the prime target of that? Skywrath Mage. You bring him down before he can deploy Mystic Flare or any form of burst. And just look how squishy Z-Red is. He has 644 health. He will go down to the Blade near enough alone. It's called the shotgun for the reason. You do not want to be the victim of it. Equally though, Noki's lurking around very aggressively, going to drop the Fade Bolt and just harass Bethel a little bit, but still, what backup does Noki have around him? He's got SD nearby, and that's it. So it could be the supports versus a Weaver and the Wraith King, and both of these heroes are fairly tanky, and you've got to consider we almost have that Lincoln Sphere online for Bethel now as well, so he's going to be able to stand and fight that a little bit more than he could previously. But in the meantime, KYT messing around with Ysera. And this could be quite favourable in terms of the Elder Titan at this point. And he is opting for most likely a BKB, and that's going to let him get into the middle of these fights and actually use the right click that he has available. And Noki will be the target once more. Gets caught by the Ancient Seal in the jungle, being very aggressive in terms of his positioning, dropping some wards in the jungle, but pays for it with his life once more. And I would not be surprised to see the de-warding coming in pretty much immediately here for Insidious Idol right now. They must know the Rubik was in the jungle with a purpose, and we already have a sentry available for Z-Red. But meantime, as we take a look around the map, just favourable trades at this point for Insidious. They're fighting their way back into this. They are by no means out of this game, and this is why I never counted team out. It's only a 5,000 gold lead. That's recoverable. Experience-wise, has been recovered. We're near enough the 0 mark. And if Insidious Idol can start to get some momentum in terms of levels, this could be very powerful here for the Dire side. And now we've got a siege coming on for the tier 1 top. In the meantime, in the back, we do have the Ember Spirit poking around, and Lekels will force out to the Rubik at this point. They'll just force rotations and then probably exert their pressure either on the mid or potentially the bottom lane. But Insidious backing up Ysera once more, and honestly, what do we go for next for Ysera? He's got his phase, he's got his drum, he's got a bottle, probably a Battle Fury, and just looking for that cleave damage, but he's going to go straight onto MyPro. Gets hexed up, though, by the Shadow Shaman, and now being burst down. Earth Splitter to be deployed as well, and that's going to be enough to burst down that Ember Spirit once more. He has to be careful with his positioning, otherwise he is just so susceptible to the burst damage coming out of MiTH Trust. Especially when that Earth Splitter is deployed. He does not care how tanky you are, you will lose 35% of your life, regardless. But now ping's gone Insidious. Now we get the initiation from MyPro. The Thunderclap as well of a Wraithfire to try to keep himself alive, but that's surely not going to be enough. Stomp comes through, does land on Insidious. Now telekinesis into the air. He's going to go down. No chance of surviving that one. He doesn't have a reincarnation, but now equally Mystic Flare. Z-Red trying to bring down the Brewmaster, doesn't quite manage to do so, and you've got 5 very healthy heroes lurking near this top tier 2. They could rotate up, they could look to push that down, but instead we're going to see the smoke and rotation. Who do we go on next? In the meantime, Lekels going on to Shagasaurus. One more right click can clean this up. Not even needed, uses the Adaptive Strike instead, and this is the strength of the Morphling against the Viper. He will just replicate the Viper, and then the Viper has to deal with his own slows if he strikes him through the corrosive skin. But equally now we do have that full 5-man rotation to that bottom lane. 4 members supporting the Morphling on the lane. And this could be the very strong tower push that we're looking for. They'll come up take the Ancients instead, though, and this is a pretty damn big stack. Mass Serpent Ward's even being deployed for it as well, and if they can clean this up before, say, the Weaver gets it, before the Ember can get it, this is going to be a huge burst of gold and net worth to the side of MiTH, and it's exactly what they needed to find. Just the extra icing on the cake. However, we do have rotation coming in. They realise our Ancient stack's at threat, and they're trying to rotate in to do something about it, but by the time they get here, the entire stack's going to be cleaned up, and we could have another brawl on our hands, another fight. But where is the initiation? Who's going to start this one? Chagasaurus is going to come in, go into Lakel's, but Telekinesis is there. Now we've got the initiation with that Mystic Flare. Looking for Lakel's, can't bring him down in time, and now in comes the Primal Split. But damage coming through from Bethel is enough to bring down the Rubik, and now you get a wave from over the top. Lakel's dominating, killing off that Viper immediately, and that's the target you need to bring down early in these fights. SD in the meantime messing around with Bethel, and he's going to be forced to go defensive, but Lakel's stunned out. Ancient Seal deployed as well. In comes Bethel once again. Can they get any more off the back of this one? SD TP's out, he's safe, and now you've got MyPro. He tries to get out with the Hasterin, and Lakel's, he replicates, and he's completely fine. We also have Blink Dagger available now for the Shadow Shaman, which is going to help out in terms of this initiation, getting that all-important Hex onto the Viper, or potentially onto the Weaver, so he can't time-lapse, so he can't Suguchi away. The items are all starting to come online for MiTH, exactly what they need as well. We look across the board for MiTH Thrust. We've got Blink Dagger onto MyPro. He's had that a long time. I would not be surprised to see gold and potential components for Aghanim soon, and he has just picked up the point boosters. So again, Aghanim's coming up on MyPro. He's only 2,000 gold away. Finoki, he wants a Force Staff, and honestly, he's been picked off a few times. I can understand the choice for a Force, and it'll help protect his team. SD, Blink Dagger, golden. SD has all he could possibly want. For KYT, he's going for most likely that BKB we mentioned earlier. He's still a good 1,300 away from it if that is indeed his choice. And for Lakel's, we do have another pickup of an Ultimate Orb. Now, I was personally expecting a shotgun, because you'll just be able to blow up the Skyreth Mage before anything can happen, and unfortunately Lakel's TP gets cancelled, catching it just at the end. I believe that was at 0.1 seconds, and now we got the rotation in. Ancient Seal going to be deployed, but it's just going to force the Lincolns, and now we get a stun through from Insidious, but they can't fight the Morphling. The Morphling is just too damn strong at this point. He is tanky, and he has a Lincolns. And KYT now being aggressive, showing his positioning, and a smoke on the backline. MyPro, Noki, and SD, they want more. They have the Blink Daggers, and they can jump aggressively. Who will be their target, though? It would be Insidious. And the pings go, Insidious needs to just rotate away. He can't risk being caught. Same for Bethel, though, and he does go straight over a sentry. Thunderclap, gonna miss, unfortunately, and does force the Lincolns at least with the Beer Toss. And at this point in, surely it's just going to be a rotation this top lane. Push this in with Lakel's, and just look for this tier 2. Get a tier 2 on the board early, before the 25-minute mark. But nonetheless, it seems towers are the order of business, and Insidious, they'll commit the Mystic Flare for an illusion, unfortunately. They want to potentially get some pressure going on this tier 1, but are they going to risk it? There's their own pressure across the board. Lakel's getting caught out of position again, but they can't really stay and fight this one. Lakel's will beat Chagasaurus surely here in a straight-up brawl, especially if he starts morphing towards that all-important strength just to survive. And stun coming through with the Adaptive Strike, that should be fine though. But in comes the support. KYT is here. He wants to fight. He can potentially go onto Chagasaurus, and we have a 3-man rotation, the 3 cores. In comes the Primal Split. They're going to go straight onto the Viper. They're going to put Insidious into the air, and the Viper is the full focus here. Where's the Earth Split? It's not going to connect to anyone, unfortunately. And the Viper needs to be brought down. Drops his Viper Stroke onto the Fire Panda just to keep it off of him for a few seconds longer, but Lakel's does not care. One more right click will be able to clean that one up, and it goes the way of the Brewmaster. Meantime, backline, Ysera is the focus from SD here. Does he have enough to escape? Yes, he does. He's going to ball away. Can he clear the fighting area, though? The Fire Revenants move so damn slow. Tries to buy time, does go over the top, gets the Invis Room, but instantly it's picked up by SD instead. No, and the Hex, the Shackles are there. Ysera going to be in a lot of trouble now, and brought down. I thought he got the Invis Room. No, not a chance. SD with the plays. The clutch plays, getting that Invis Room in time. And now it's a full rotation from MiTH Thrust with that momentum, killing off the 2 big cores. They're going to go straight for this tier 2, and I don't honestly blame them. Getting this tier 2, getting another tier 2 early even, would be a very strong thing. And we consider, how can Insidious defend this one? I don't think they honestly can. They're going to have to let this tier 2 fall. Without the Ember, at least, they cannot hold this. But while this is going on, Viper is, of course, farming up, and he's desperately trying to get a Desolator. He's going for the Lincoln's Desolator build, even though there is so much magical damage and potential control from MiTH. Unless that is, of course, a BKB, but I think we would all agree right now Insidious is just lacking in terms of the damage department. So it's a gamble. Do I go BKB and survive, or do I go Daedalus and potentially kill someone? It's a very hard call here for Insidious, and honestly, they're going to need the perfect set of team fights to be able to fight back into this one. And we can see on the graphs just how big a snowball is starting to develop in favour of MiTH Trust here. They're getting the tier 2s down, they're pushing the lanes, and they're winning the team fights. So that gives them just under a 10,000 gold lead. And experience-wise, 5k, again building in their favour. But now it seems Insidious want to take an early Roshan. Can they fight this though? At least can they kill it before the full rotation from MiTH is here? They have Primal Split on the side of MiTH Trust, and in comes the Spirit from the Elder Titan. Are we going to see the Stomp dropped? No, not going to risk it, but it doesn't matter. Lakels comes in from the sidelines, kills off the Skyrath Mage before anything happens. Now we get the Earth Splitter, connects on two, onto Shagosaurus and Bethel, but Bethel will just time-lapse immediately and try to escape. And on the back foot, you do have the Ember Panda, Ember Spirit, just doing some damage, but it does not matter. In comes a Primal Split. Shagosaurus will be brought down. Double kill going the way of Lakels. And from here on in, what more can we see? Backlines. The Mass Serpent Wards were deployed, unfortunately couldn't pick off their target. I believe they were looking for the Ember Spirit off the back of that one, but couldn't manage to do so. And Ember throws another Panda in. Is he going to try for a steal here? That would be a very brave thing to do, especially when Lakels, he does not care. He's going to come up. One more right click could finish off that Ember Spirit, but Lakels cannot get on target. Instead, he's throwing attacks into Z-Red. Well, this is going on. Of course, we have Roshan on the back line, and what else do we have going on? MyPro taking some damage. That is a full Desolator now on Bethel, and TP away by KYT. He cannot risk going down, but Lakels finishes off the Skyrath Mage. Is he going to find anyone else? Insidious is seen by him. Lakels wants the kill. He wants to hunt, but TP away. Can Insidious get away in time? Yes, he damn well can. And Bethel's going to fall back as well. He cannot risk getting picked off, but Shagosaurus is going to rotate back in. That's a potentially ballsy move from the Viper, considering 3 members of MiTH Trust are still here, and they have the momentum to fight off the back of this Roshan attempt. And I got to remember to breathe. We have the action starting to all snowball here, and this is the kind of game that we love to see. The thing is, Roshan, half health, he could be the next potential fight. Bethel lurking nearby, going to throw some damage into Lakels, but Lakels will win a straight-out right-click fight, and that is something to always keep in mind. And it is a full Manta onto the Morphling of Lakels at this point. And I'm wondering, are we going to see the Eth Blade now? Is it time for the shotgun, or does he just want to go heavy stats? As we do get another item complete, another big item on that note. MyPro, Aghanim Scepter, ready to go. SD has his blink though, and he can be the one to set this all up with a good Hex onto that Weaver. If you can bring the Weaver down very quickly in the duration of, say, a Hex, it gives you such an advantage going to this fight. Of course, I think buybacks are a little more important than net worth right now, and we can see no one at all, apart from the Ember Spirit now on the side of Insidious, has that buyback. And Ysera's going to come in and try to trade blows with Lakels, but this is a fight that Lakels could win quite easily. Ysera doesn't want to hang around though. Cannot risk it at all. And he's just going to fall back and play this safe game. Then again, in all honesty, I think Lakels can just chew apart anyone he deems fit right now. He can kill Shagosaurus, he could kill even the Ember Spirit in a few seconds flat, and it will be a Roshan now in favour of MiTH. With this Aegis, is it time to see a tier 3 push, or take that final tier 2? Bethel rotating in, as well as the Ember. They're going to go straight onto Noki, and they can bring Noki down in 3 attacks. That's the end of him. Equally, chased through from Ysera, and he's not going to find anything extra, but bot lane, we do have that push, that pressure coming in from MiTH. Sure, they lost their Rubik. What do they still have? They have Earth Splitter, they have Primal Split, and most importantly, they have the Morphling. Speaking of Morphling, he's taking a lot of damage. He could get brought down. His stun comes through from Insidious, but it does catch a Lincoln's, and the Earth Splitter coming in to deter the push. Safely back under the tier 1 tower, and he should be fine off the back of that.
Dire's bottom tower was never my favorite.
But I clearly wonder here, with SD and MyPro lurking on this bot lane, and the pressure coming in on this mid lane from Insidious, can they finally get this tier 1 down? This tier 1 has been a blight for Insidious this entire game so far. They still cannot manage to finish it off quite yet. Not with the rotation in from KYT and the threat of being put to sleep by the Echo Stomp. And the Echo Stomp, of course, you cannot underestimate it. You seriously cannot underestimate it. But where do we stand? We're at 30 minutes into this game. 18 kills, play 11. We don't care about kills, we care about graphs and gold. That's a near enough 12,000 gold lead now in favour of MiTH. Their snowball is rolling. It's going to be up to Insidious to stop it, and equally with a 10,000 experience lead, it's a very rough game here for MiTH. Sorry, not for MiTH, for Insidious. And if Insidious can take the next big fight, they might be able to get something. But equally, Stegosaurus going to have to TP away. Almost gets caught out of position. But there is some harassment coming over the top from Ysera as well. Just making use of that sleight of fist. Unfortunately for the Ember Spirit, he does not have Cleave up yet. He is so far behind in terms of this game, and I can actually show this in terms of net worth. The Ember Spirit has less than 8,000 gold. He is behind all 3 cores from MiTH Trust. And that is a pretty big disadvantage to be at. And now you get the initiation from Lekels, from MyPro. They're going to look to bring down Stegosaurus. They commit the Mystic Flare, but the Mystic Flare does not enough at this point. And with the Earth Splitter as well, that's a dead Viper. What else are they going to see off the back of this one? Hex onto Ysera, but it does force the Aegis on the Brew. In the meantime, Lekels just choose people to part. He is godlike. Make that beyond godlike with a double, and now looking for more. Bethel caught in the tree line. He tries to bring down ST, doesn't manage to do so, and he goes down. Triple kill by Lekels, buyback immediately by the Morphling. Lekels just going for more. Does manage to get the Ultra. Can we get a Rampage this game? He's going to replicate away, doesn't want to hang around. Deterred from the Rampage for a few seconds at least, but the fight is still going on in the pit, in the main base. KYT with that BKB pop. Rampage! Lekels comes back in. He wants more though. Double Rampage? Yes, certainly. Reincarnation, however, going to delay that for a few seconds. Ember in the air, and GG, well played, is called a Rampage in game number 1. The perfect thing we want to see. And, well, as I mentioned, this is only game number 1. We have another game, ladies and gentlemen. These teams are matching up once more. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we shall be back on HeflaTV with game number 2 momentarily.